All right, what's up? What's happening, everybody? Good to be back in the building. It is your boy, the one, the only, the X Factor, Xavier McKnight. We're here for another edition of Xtreme Sports. Here with two of my brothers here in the building tonight, two of my NABJ brothers, Devon Ashby and Matt Craig, two world-renowned podcasters themselves. Fellas, what's going on?
Not much, man. Not much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, same. It's been good.
Shout out to y'all, man. I mean, y'all had two great podcasts that came out this week. Dev, your episode, especially a shout out to your co-host for the bad boy reference. Nobody talks about that enough, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Came through dropping the heat as usual with the play-by-play analysis. Matt came through earlier today, dropping another episode of Open Strive, basically letting us all know that he told us that the Milwaukee Bucks would be where they are right now tonight.
Tomorrow's news today.
There you go. I'm giving tomorrow news today. There you go, dear.
It definitely is. He is now going by the nickname of the Prophet. And I got to say, right now he is not missing. But before we get started, let me just say to everybody out there, in case y'all didn't know, there is a Delta variant that is going around that is contracted through COVID-19. It is related to COVID-19. And this goes to everything that I've been saying every time we come on this show. Yes, restrictions are being loosened up, but COVID-19 is still a real thing. Y'all, please put those masks on and take this thing seriously. Even if you've been vaccinated at this point, it still might be best for you to walk around in some places with your mask on, because this thing is not over. We still got a long way to go. We're seeing it through, but we got to get through this. Big shout out to my co-host, my brother Dolph. He can't be with us tonight, but bro, you know we're going to hold it down as usual. And let's go ahead and get this thing started. So, to the Prophet himself, I just got to say I apologize to you, my brother, because I was absolutely one of those people who said that you were out of your mind. You didn't know what the hell you were talking about, saying that the Bucks would initially win in 6, then you stretched it out to 7. Either way, you said the Bucks were going to win the series. And after the first 2 games, it wasn't looking so good. And then in Game 3, we saw Milwaukee. They held the Brooklyn Nets to under 90 points score. I didn't think I'd ever see that. This was before Kyrie got hurt. Then in Game 4, they won it up. They tied it up. When KD went back in Game 5 and he dropped the heat that he dropped in that game, I thought for sure, I said, okay, Brooklyn's going to go ahead and get this thing closed out, right? Nah, they went to Milwaukee and they lost Game 6, and as thrilling as Game 7 was, the Bucks pulled it out. And there are people out there who can say, oh, James Harden was hobbled and Kyrie was hurt. Don't matter, man. Either way, Brooklyn didn't get the job done. Blake Griffin didn't step up in times when he needed to step up. The Jeff Green that showed up in Game 5 didn't show up in Game 6 and 7. And Kevin Durant, he put on a show, but he didn't get the job done. And around here, we hold people's standards of getting the job done. And we're going to get to where Kevin Durant is now on my pecking order right now, current players in the league. But first, the floor is Matt's, man, because he told us all that this was going to happen. Many of us failed to listen. And here we are tonight, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Milwaukee Bucks are hosting another team that nobody really thought would be here, the Atlanta Hawks. Matt, go ahead and take it, brother. Let us hear it.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. So I just want to give a shout out to first the Brooklyn Nets for all the they made it tough. They made it tough. And if you know me, you know that I'm a James Harden fan because he used to play for the Houston Rockets, so I ride behind James Harden a lot. So it was hard for me to cheer against James Harden. But my dislike for KD is stronger than my love for Harden. I would say that. So, but overall, like X said, it came down to injuries and KD just not stepping up at the end. And Giannis, you got to give credit to Giannis for what he did. Coming through, even Chris Middleton. A lot of people wrote Chris Middleton off all year since last year for the player he was, saying he wasn't this, saying he wasn't that. And he stepped up big time throughout this series. So I was just looking at Giannis when they fell down 0-2, and all I can think about was in Black Panther when he was fighting at the beginning of the movie, when he had his match, and his mom was like, show him who you are. I feel like all the Giannis ancestors said that to him, and it made him rise up and come out game 3 as a new man. And he did his thing throughout the rest of the series. And I just want to give a shout out to Giannis for showing everybody who he is and getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe a bid to the finals. And like X said, that best player of the NBA title is vacant. It's like a world heavyweight championship, and it's vacant right now. And we're just gonna see where it goes from here. But yeah, man, at the end of the day, pretty much everything X said is exactly why I picked the Bucks. Injuries, chemistry, them only playing 7 games together all season, and the Bucks just been showing me a lot of signs throughout the season on why I feel like this is going to be a different year for not only Giannis but Chris Middleton as well. And one more thing, picking up PJ Tucker late in the year, that was an amazing pickup, an amazing trade that they GM did by bringing in. I'm not Chris Middleton, but PJ Tucker. Picking up PJ Tucker and bringing him in, that was an amazing pickup that the GM did. That kind of went unnoticed, but when they picked him up, I was like, he gonna do wonders for them, and he ended up doing that.
Yeah, he definitely did, because let it be known, KD still got his numbers, but they weren't efficient. And one of the things that we talked about when it comes to KD a lot on this show is how efficient of a shooter and how efficient of a player he is in the league. He didn't look very efficient against Milwaukee at times, and a lot of that is because of the disrupting that PJ Tucker was out there causing. Got to give a shout out to him. I will say this, though. I expected Giannis to ball. He's a 2-time MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year. One of the top 10 players in the league, I would think mostly everybody would say. So I expected him to come out and do what he was going to do. It's Chris Middleton who I was absolutely shocked by. He showed up big time. I mean, to me, this is like his Scottie Pippen coming out party like Scottie Pippen had in 1991. When Pippen finally grew up on the Bulls and Jordan finally had that proper running mate to go run with. And, of course, as we know, history tells us they rattled off 6 championships in 6 tries, arguably the greatest duo of all time. But, Dev, let me go to you real quick. Your thoughts here on Milwaukee is here, and I'm not so sure you expected this either.
So my thing was, I wasn't sure, like, even with a fully healthy Brooklyn Nets team, my thing was like Giannis and them boys got enough that they can at least defend them if they can't score with them. And then when Harden went down, and then obviously when Kyrie went down, that kind of changed the series even more, because then KD PJ Tucker was defending him really well. They put Drew Holiday on him a little bit. For some reason, they wouldn't put Giannis on him, but it ended up not being too big of a deal. But when KD had to take on more of like I'm the man role, that's when he started shooting more. And then obviously the more you shoot, your numbers are gonna go up and down depending on the night you have. But like, I was kind of sort of felt like the Bucks could win. And then obviously they took it to 7 games, and there were some games they probably should have won, like that game 5 when KD just absolutely went out of his mind. That was a game that Milwaukee absolutely should have and could have won, but they just fell apart because, things like that. And then, the overtime game. And then even, I think those were the big 2, but it's like, Chris Middleton, like you said, he's the one that kind of shocked me, because he's got a tendency of, he's an all-star and he plays well during the regular season. And then when he gets up against dudes in that upper echelon, like KD, like Kawhi a couple of years ago, I don't know if I call Jimmy Butler upper echelon, but like you saw last year, they just folded like origami paper. He's kind of had a tendency not to play well, but then this year he stepped up and just balled out of his mind alongside Giannis and gave Giannis that sidekick. And dare I say, he might have even been Batman in this case, because, Giannis was having some struggles as well, and they usually like to play Middleton as the closer. But yeah, shout out to the Bucks, and I think now was their time.
It definitely does appear that this is now the case for sure. And it's funny you bring up the point of Middleton being Batman. A lot of that series, he was Batman. Because we all know Giannis' shooting woes. We know his shooting problems. We know he's not the best shooter out there. I just didn't expect Chris Middleton to step up the way he did. The guy who I was surprised by offensively, though, was Drew Holiday. He didn't show up in ways I thought he was going to show up. But defensively, he held his own.
Yeah,
Now,
I agree. Especially for $130 million, you would expect him to give you more. He did make a that shot he made in Game 3, that layup when he made it at the last second. That was like a big shot for them, and he like they didn't even call it timeout. He just got it and made a play on the ball and brought it up the court and made a quick play. So I definitely agree with that. And I agree with Dev. It should have been over in 6. I picked it in 6, and I'm not saying it should have been over 6 just so I can be 100% right. But it should have been over at 6 because they should have won that game when KD went crazy. They definitely should have won that game. When Giannis, when Chris Middleton came down the court and he sucked defense in, then he got everybody there, then he dropped it off to Giannis, and it went literally right through Giannis' hand. That would have tied the game up. And at least out of that, y'all would have got overtime. But literally, it ball went right through Giannis' hand. And Jeff, you got to give a shout out to Jeff Green because he went crazy that game. He was 6 for 6 at one point. Then he ended the game like 7 for 8. So he went crazy from the 3, and they should have won that game. And after doing all that, after all KD did, after Jeff Green shooting them out the game and all that, they still barely won. So I agree. They definitely should have won that game. They should have beat them at 6, but they ended up beating them anyway. So it worked out for them perfectly. And the Bucks go be tough going on into the playoffs, but the Nets are definitely going to come back next season strong. Not sure if everybody's going to be back as far as I know KD going to be back, but who knows if Harden and Kyrie both will be back. But I'm not saying they free agents, but you just never know what the front office to do, honestly. You never know. KD going to be back for sure, but if all 3 of them come back next season, they're going to be a tough out for anybody if they can stay healthy.
that's the big question when it comes to them. It's the health thing. That's why I think it's without a doubt that all 3 of them will be back. Now, some of those other guys on that team, Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, they're a question mark going forward. But, Matt, I'm glad you said it. Shout out to Jeff Green, because without Jeff Green in Game 5, Brooklyn doesn't win that game. KD could have scored 60, and if Jeff Green doesn't do anything half close to what he does, they still lose that game. So,
and the other thing, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I gave Matt a lot of crap for this, but I mean, truthfully, and this is me being serious 100% right now. Milwaukee was the better team in this series for the final 5 games of the series, all 5 games, even though they lost one of those games.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, after something switched on in Game 3, and obviously, them 2 home games were a big help. You obviously, like, Game 3 was real scrappy. That was a tight game. That could have gone either way. They got it done. Game 4, they blew them off the whatever. And then even Game 5, even though they lost, I mean, they were giving it to them, for like 3.5 quarters. So they just, I don't know what happened. I mean, and the other thing is that a lot of people are going to, especially if Milwaukee wins it all, a lot of people are going to probably try to do them like they did Toronto in 2019 and delegitimize it because, Harden got injured and Kyrie got injured and injuries. And I'm just like, injuries are a part of the game. Like, that's the unfortunate part of the business they're in, that every championship run is going to be hampered by injuries because you're playing super late into a season. You're playing something like, if you're a good team like the Milwaukee Bucks, you're likely playing anywhere from 90 to 100 games in a season because you got to think about 4 best-of-7 playoff series on top of an 82-game season. So that's like an extra 21 games. So people are going to be tired. People are going to be dinged up. You're not going to be as healthy as you were early in the year. Injuries happen. Like, we've seen this playoffs more than anything, all the people that have been going down. So, like, this idea that it doesn't count because of injuries, I mean, it's a whole lot of titles we can take away if we're going to go down that road, Very
much so. The most noticeable one to me would be the 2015 championship that the Warriors won. But
Exactly.
As much as I talk about that point, let me just put it like this: these guys can control who they out there on the floor with. You play who it is that you are put in front of to play. So if Milwaukee indeed does complete the job here, give them their props. They're just playing who's in front of them. Toronto, they played who was in front of them in 2019. Now, with that being said, I have no doubt that if KD was healthy for most of that finals, that Golden State would have been hoisting a third straight trophy. KD pretty much showed me that for the few minutes that he did play in that game 5. He scored 11 points, I believe, in 12 minutes of play, and they needed all of those 11 points from him just to pull that game out. But imagine if he could have just stayed out there the entire time. And we could tell that he wasn't 100% in that game either. He wasn't trying to move off screens. He wasn't trying to bounce. He was just getting to his spot and shooting, and he was knocking them down. But, yeah, these teams, these players, they play who it is that they're put in front of. So don't take that away from them. And that's not even just in basketball. That's in sports, period. You play who it is that you're put in front of. Like, I'll use the Super Bowl for an example. There are really some people out there who feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers only beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the previous Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes had no offensive line help whatsoever. The Bucs didn't have any control over that. And if y'all honestly were looking at it, they were out here torching offensive lines throughout the entire postseason, if we really being honest with it. Like, seriously. But let's get to this best player in the world title here, because Matt seems to be the only person who responded to me in the group chat to an understanding of what it was when I was saying last week after Game 7 came to an end. I said, as much as I love KD and still in my mind, I'm still going to view him as the best player in the world. That title is currently vacant right now because he didn't get the job done. Now, I had people coming back at me with, you can't say that right now. Giannis still has holes in his game. He still can't shoot. He still can't. Okay, I understand that. We all know Giannis, no matter what happens, how this season ends, he still needs to get in the gym and work on that perimeter game and get a consistent jump shot in some way going. Even if it's not a 3, get a mid-range shot going. But if Giannis completes this deal, wins this championship, and wins Finals MVP after winning the 2 previous regular season MVPs, you got to give that man his due as the current best player in the world if that indeed does happen. Matt, I need you to help me out here and chime in on this one because it's going to be some people out here who, you know, they still not going to understand exactly where we coming from with this, but it's like we got to keep that same energy, y'all. It's like no matter how much we might like KD, even in the LeBron era, I mean, obviously LeBron's era is still going on. But I'm saying when he was the unanimous best player in the world in a lot of people's eyes and KD was out here winning championships, albeit was with the loaded Golden State Warriors, he was still the man who was out here pulling up from 30 on LeBron in his mug, getting the job done, hoisting up those trophies. And, you know, I thought that he was going to have a good chance to do it again this year. He did. He just didn't get the job done. But you got to get that Greek freak in Milwaukee his due if he gets this thing done, man. And it's like Matt said in his podcast earlier today, that title for the time being was only between 2 current players, and that's KD and Giannis because Kawhi is currently out hurt. And I don't know if you would automatically elevate somebody like a Devin Booker or a Paul George to that level automatically if they were to get the job done like that. They don't exactly have those previous accolades to go along with why somebody even gets to claim that title in the first place. Matt, help me out here.
So add on to everything you just said, like it wouldn't be Devin. It couldn't be Devin if he won. It couldn't be Paul George. And Kawhi is currently out, and I honestly don't think he's coming back with that knee, knowing Kawhi. And the only reason it couldn't be Devin or anybody to come out of West, like you said, or even Trae Young, it couldn't be Trae Young, even if he get past Giannis. Only because they don't have those accolades like a Giannis or KD already has. And when I say that is they got MVPs, where KD had 1, Giannis has 2, Defensive Player of the Year. KD has 2 rings, 2 Finals MVPs, and they just got a lot more stuff with it, and not just that championship. If Giannis was to win that year, that's like saying if when Chauncey Billups won a championship and he got Finals MVP, he was the best player in the world at the time. He wasn't he was the best player at that moment on that squad, but he wasn't the best player in the world because he didn't have all those individual accolades to go along with that ring. The KD point was, for me, and like I said on my podcast, I'm glad you brought that up, X. When after Game 5, when he just went crazy, I tweeted, no matter who win this series, KD the best. I said, no matter who win this series, KD the best. I don't care if he loses these next 2 games or what. And he did lose the next 2 games. But I said, he the best. After the series was done, Giannis got past him. He made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. He's trying to make his bid to the NBA Finals. I said, okay, I was a prisoner of the moment at that moment. Let me step back and readjust what I was saying. KD lost, Giannis moved on. If Giannis moved on from where he is now to the NBA Finals, then go to the NBA Finals and win the championship, my thing is, how can we not crown him the best at that moment? Going into next season, he's going to be the best. He can lose that title. He doesn't have it undisputed. It's not an undisputed. Like when LeBron had it, LeBron was the undisputed champion. Like he had it, and nobody else was even a number 1 contender, right? So it was even close. Like KD was doing his thing and all that, but Curry was doing his thing and all that, but LeBron was the man. Right now, the title is vacant. So once Giannis get it, it's a chance that somebody can still take it from him. He's not their champion. What is his, and nobody else, no matter what he does, it still can be taken from him. So when we say that if Giannis gets the championship, get the Finals MVP, he the best in the world, we're not saying he the best in the world like LeBron was. He just the best in the world at that moment and right now going forward. Now going into next season, he's going to be the best. Once the season unfolds, we get into the playoff, KD may emerge. LeBron go come back he may emerge. Kawhi may come back. He may emerge. Like you never know. Luka may surprise some people and make a run for the MVP and emerge. We never know. But right now, going into the finals, if Giannis finishes off, we have to give him that title right now. And the only reason I said KD was after Game 5 was it because the performance he put on. But like I said, I was a prisoner of the moment. And I feel like a lot of people are right now. They're prisoners of the moment and they're prisoners of what KD did. But once you just step back and look at it, you'll see that it's the title is for Giannis to have right now. Now, if he doesn't make it and he doesn't make it to the finals, then the title just going to be vacant going into next season. No, we won't have a best player in the world. We just go into the next season, and the title is going to be up for anybody to get. It's going to be like the Royal Rumble, and whoever comes out on top will be the champion. But right now, like I agree with X, if Giannis finishes off, we have no choice but to give it to him as of now.
And more to what you said right there, because there's going to be some people out there that go, well, if Giannis doesn't win it, then this title automatically goes back to LeBron. No, it doesn't. He lost in the first round this year. Whether that ankle was hobbled up or it wasn't, I do believe that it was. But his team still lost in the first round. It's a vacant title, and it's up for grabs for the time being. And listen, we've seen moments like this before. Remember in 2006, D-Wade had the greatest finals performance I've ever seen in my lifetime till this day. Just put his team on his back and carried them past the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, Shaq was there, but Shaq didn't really do much in that series. I understand guys like Antoine Walker and Gary Payton and older Alonzo Mourning. If D-Wade doesn't do what he does, Dirk has a ring five years earlier than he actually won his championship. And we walked out of that season, or at least I remember hearing people after that season was over, as of right now, Dwayne Wade is the best player in the world. And after the finals performance he had, how could you deny him something like that? Now, did he keep that title? Absolutely not. And that's what Matt's explaining here. It's like, if Giannis does complete the job in this moment, and because of his previous accolade, and D-Wade didn't even have those types of previous accolades, but with a performance like that and him being one of the rising young stars in the league and knowing that he was one day going to be considered one of the best players, many people just elevated him automatically to, in this current moment, he's the best player. And listen, Matt talked about prisoner of the moment. We've all been prisoner of the moment in something. Matt and Dev will remember last year when the bubble was going on and Luka was absolutely in there just killing it. I tweeted out, Luka is top 5 right now. That was a prisoner of the moment for me, because you forget about all the players who aren't playing, who are out hurt, or whatever the case is. But in that moment with the current players who were playing, in my mind, he was top 5 in that moment. That's how he was playing. But, I quickly came back down to reality and realized young fella not there yet. He on his way, but he not there yet. Dev, what do you think about this best player in the world title? Where do you stand on it right now?
So for me, I feel like KD should still be in the conversation just based off of accolades and the things he's doing. And if he's not the best, he is damn sure like one of the most skilled and one of the most talented. But yeah, as far as best in the world, I mean, I guess it's okay to say like I guess Bron's in the twilight of his career, so like he's gonna have to come down eventually. And maybe that is what's happening because you've seen like 2 of the last 3 years he's either been bounced out the first round or missed the playoffs entirely. And then the one year that he did win it, they won it as a 4 seed in the bubble. And then you see this year that maybe the bubble was just not what we thought it was because all the teams that was up at the top of the bubble just wasn't doing what they needed to do this year. But Giannis, I mean, he's definitely up there as well. He's been up there. It's just that he kept having all these early playoff exits, and it's kind of difficult to continue to put him up there if you're going to keep losing early playoff exits. And but at the same time, I feel like the accolades thing can be a little misleading because it's like, let's say Utah would have won and would still be in the Final Four, and let's say they get to a championship and win. Are we going to say Rudy Gobert is the top player in the world because he's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year with a ring? Like, I mean, it's kind of – it can be subjective depending on – I guess it depends on the individuals too. Like, that's just my 3 cents on that. But Giannis, if he wins a ring, definitely there's no reason you can't put him in the conversation. Like he's easily up there. Now, if he's number 1 in the world, it depends on being prisoner of the moment, definitely. So we will see with that though. And if he loses again, hell no. Basically, that's where I'm at with that.
To add on to your point, X, what you said about Wade, I agree with that 100%. And it's crazy because I remember that vividly. When he won that ring, I was at Books A Million in Houston, Texas. I think I was probably in elementary school back when he won that championship. But I remember I was at Books A Million with my dad, and I was looking through a magazine. It was one of those sports magazines. I can't remember which one, but they ranked the top 100 players in the NBA, and they had. After the championship, they had, and that's when they started calling it Dwayne Wade Flash. I didn't even know at that moment they called Dwayne Wade Flash. So I seen it. They were like number 1 player in the world, Flash. And I said, who is Flash? So I strolled. I'm thinking of Instagram. I turned over to the page where it had the rankings, and they had Wade number 1. And I told my dad, I was like, Dad, look, they got Dwayne Wade, the best player in the world. He said, what about Kobe Bryant? And I said, Dwayne Wade just won a championship. He said, Kobe got 3. And he said, yeah, but like I said, I'm young, so I can't really debate sports right at that moment. I said, but Dwayne just won this year. He said people just forgetting about Kobe so fast. And he ended up being right because after that championship, Kobe ended up reeing up and coming back out and proving he was still the best in the world. And he ended up getting 2 more championships. And he proved to everybody that even though Wade got that, I'm still the man. And I want to prove to everybody that I am still the man. So that just goes into your point that after that championship, if the media and everybody was saying Wade was the best, and they kind of just dismissed Kobe like he wasn't even in the league. That once the season started, Kobe proved to everybody like, yeah, I'm still the man. I don't know how soon y'all forgot, but I'm still the man.
And let's also remember this. We came really close to if the Miami Heat completed the job last year in the bubble. Y'all can't convince me that people out there wouldn't have been saying, oh, Jimmy Butler's the best player in the world right now. If they had completed that deal, there would have been people out here calling Jimmy Butler the best player in the world. So just because somebody says that doesn't mean that they believe that long term. It's short term, it's right there, it's in the moment, and we've had plenty of moments like that in league history. Speaking of,
I think one thing I'm going to say this lastly, and I think one thing the people resistance like to name Giannis the best is the idea that people got of Giannis. Seeing him flame out in the playoffs, seeing him come up short, saying he ain't got no package, all this stuff they say about him. So it's hard for people to say that. So they hesitant of saying like he the best because all these like they just brought it up like he had these flame outs in these last couple of years. So people are hesitant to give him that title because they bring up is his history and they don't want to acknowledge what he's doing right now.
and to your point, this is why we continue to say if he completes the job. This is why we're saying it. We're not calling Giannis the best in the world right now. That's what I want everybody to understand. We're not saying he's the best in the world right now. We're just simply saying that title is vacant. It's up for grabs. And while he is still going, he is in the running to get it. That's what we're saying right now. Dev, you have any other thoughts that you want to add to this to close out this topic?
Wait, say it one more time. I'm sorry.
I was saying, do you have any other thoughts to this that you want to add before we close out this topic?
Yeah, no, I think to Matt's point, there's the flameouts with Giannis, but more so his style of play. Like he's not fluid. He's not like shimmying on people. He just does the bully ball. Like it's even players in the league. You know, James Harden being the most notable who've publicly come out and said, like, oh man, if I was 6'11" and could just bully people and didn't really require no skill, I'd be that dude too. And it's like it seemed like it's some animosity. I mean, I don't know how much of that was, you know, back and forth, but like it's people are hesitant with Giannis because they don't like the fact that he's not polished, I guess, and that he's not KD out here, Slim Reaper, 7 feet tall with a handle like a point guard. So that's kind of the main thing with Giannis. But if he wins a ring, you can't not put him up there.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say in response to that. Because there are people out there who feel that way about his style of play and how he plays. Some of them surprisingly are what we call quote unquote old heads. People who enjoyed Shaq and people who enjoyed Tim Duncan. And my response to some of those people will be, how can you not enjoy what you're seeing right now? It's like, how many times, y'all, do we hear people say, oh, we missed the big man down low. We missed him playing it down low in the paint. We missed the dude just dunking it all over somebody, throwing it down and shooting all these damn threes is ruining the game. How many times do we hear that, y'all? Like, seriously. So if you one of those people who enjoy that post-up game, but for some reason you're not enjoying what Giannis doing, get out your feelings, bro, and stop being a hypocrite. That's all I got to say to that.
Dog, that's an excellent point of bringing up Tim Duncan. Because people did disrespect Tim Duncan's game because he was born and he had no emotion, but you could not deny his results.
Right, people hated the Spurs.
That's what I'm saying. You rarely heard somebody acknowledge. Like, even to this day, if you ask somebody to rank your top 10, 15, 20 players all time, Tim Duncan not the first name to come to mind because he was so born and the team was so born. But you can't deny Tim results. Like, on the court, winning championships, MVPs, finals MVPs, all-stars, all NBA. Like, his results was amazing, but his game was boring. So nobody really was drawn to Tim Duncan as a player.
And one other thing I want to say about Tim Duncan, and then we're going to close this topic out. Y'all do realize that Tim Duncan is the only main superstar in league history to probably never miss the playoffs? But to everybody out there, like, y'all do realize that, right? It's like, I know y'all love Jordan and everything, but those years he was on the Wizards, I'm sorry, y'all, they do count because he was out there playing. Much as I love Kobe, RIP being always forever, there were some years in there he missed the playoffs, whether it was the year after Shaq left or some of those later years where the injuries were piling up. And I don't like necessarily add those in there because the injuries are so, but the fact of the matter is he was still out there playing. Bron has missed the playoffs 3 times in his career. Tim Duncan never missed the playoffs at any point in his 19-year career in this league. That is amazing. And also another thing to that, because there's going to be a lot of people out there say, oh, he had Greg Popovich. Popovich has not been the same. His teams have not been the same. They have not come close to having the same results. since Tim Duncan retired. The closest they have came back was 2017 when they made it to the Western Conference Finals before Zaza Pachulia just absolutely put an end to all their hopes and dreams. As a matter of fact, to me, that's when the official end of the Spurs as we know it, that's when it died right there in that game one. They haven't been the same team since. And it's like when they missed the playoffs this year and when they missed the playoffs last year, to some of us, it was like, damn, the Spurs missed the playoffs because they've been a constant our entire lives. It's like when the Patriots missed the playoffs last year, it's like, damn, it's like they've always been there our entire lives. But in both cases, it's like, well, Duncan ain't there, Ginobili ain't there, Parker ain't there, Kawhi ain't there. And then the Patriots case, Brady ain't there no more, Gronk ain't there no more. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
But you're not surprised.
That team was so crazy, dog. And I had heard one time somebody on I forgot what show I was watching. They said you want to sound smart in basketball or football, pick the Spurs to make it to the finals, or pick the Patriots. And 80% of the time, you're going to be right. They said, if you want to sound smart, just say that every time you have a prediction, and 80% of the time, you're probably going to be right.
And you'd have an anomaly every once in a while. Like, I'm not going to count Golden State in this instance because we saw them grow up and blossom into a dynasty. I'm going to say that OKC team with Westbrook, Durant, James Harden, young Serge Ibaka, all of those young dudes and the core veterans they had with them. They were like, I put them in there as the anomaly like what the Ravens were in 2012, a thorn in the side just for the time being. Because, you know, it's ironic because the Ravens in that same year, 2012, they go to Foxborough, they beat the Patriots. They lost to them the year before in the AFC Championship. OKC down 2-0, win 4 straight against Spurs, go to the finals. How about 2 years later, the Patriots come back and beat the Ravens in the playoffs, and the Spurs come back and beat OKC in the playoffs. So it's an anomaly thing right there with them. But as of currently where they stand, we know that these teams, they're not anywhere close to what they used to be. But, you know, shout out to Giannis, shout out to Duncan, shout out to all the stars before they play style, however it was. No, dudes, I mean, you get the job done how you get the job done. Whether you like how they play or not, there's plenty of guys who don't like the way that Steph Curry plays. You can't deny the fact that he's a 2-time MVP and a 3-time champion. So it is what it is. You get the job done how you get the job done. Speaking of getting the job done, DeAndre Ayton with one of the more electrifying finishes that we've seen in quite some time to a basketball game last night in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And it's funny, y'all, how this whole thing played out to me because Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy literally had just said about 30 seconds before this even happened, I would watch the lob to Ayton right here at the rim. And if you know basketball, you're sitting there and you're thinking that because it's like it's 0.9 left on the clock. They got Ayton right there in the paint. It's like it's enough time to get off a jump shot, but you don't need to get a 3. And you got a big man who's agile and athletic enough on the floor who, if that ball hits his hands enough, he's going to get it in the rim. Lo and behold,
they got it done too.
That is exactly what ended up happening. And
they did that back in 2017.
Yes, they did. And I don't want to say that the Clippers didn't necessarily know what the play was happening, but I would have at least had 2 guys trailing to the rim with Ayton as opposed to just having Zubac. And that's no disrespect to Zubac because he did his job and he got his hands up if you go back and you watch the replay. Jay Crowder just threw a perfect dime and Ayton was right there to throw it down. And look, I know that there are Clipper fans out there who are no, that was a goaltend. Go back and read the rules of the game. That wasn't a goaltend at all. If you're going based off of what you heard Rondo say last night, Rondo's a part of the Clippers. What's he supposed to say? Oh, yeah, that was a good shot. They're trying to contest that as much as they can to try to get that thing reversed in their way. Let's go back to some real reasons the Clippers didn't lose, that they didn't win this game last night. They didn't play good defense at all down the stretch. It was too many times where you just saw Phoenix just bringing the ball up the court, and it really didn't feel like anybody was playing up on those dudes where they were. As a matter of fact, in the last 30 seconds, I remember Book hitting a shot, and I'm like, how do you not defend him differently than this? Like, just dribble up the court, get to his spot, knock down the shot. It's like, how do you not play him a little more up close and tighter than you playing him right now? And, the big thing down to Paul George, who we've been singing his praises now for the past 5 games, basically, saying, oh, yeah, retire that Pandemic P nickname. And I'm not saying bring Pandemic P back right now, but retire that nickname. Man, Paul George is back. Bro, you got to hit those free throws down the stretch. And he didn't miss not one, but he missed both of the free throws down the stretch. It's like if you hit those shots, you put Phoenix in a position to where they now have to hit a 3 to at least tie the game up. That's a shot probably of a little bit more difficulty considering the amount of time that was on the clock. It's 0.9 on the clock. And it's like if you can't get it to somebody who can just flick it off. Just flick it off. Like, they don't have to get set and they don't have to, like, get in a certain position and knock down the shot, because while you're trying to get set, the clock going to run out while the ball is right there in your hands. But I saw some bad coaching down the stretch by Ty Lue last night, but I expect him to bounce back in Game 3. With that being said, the Clippers are in trouble because CP3 is now probable for Game 3. We didn't hear about him being probable for Game 1 or Game 2. And this is different as opposed to going up against Dallas and going up against Utah. We all knew that when it came down to Dallas, all they really got is Luka. He got a bunch of dudes who might be able to go out here and help him, but all they got for sure is Luka. With Utah, Spider, all they got is Donovan Mitchell. That's it. We know Rudy Gobert is not a threat offensively if teams really want to eliminate him from the equation. With Phoenix, it's like I give Chris Paul a lot of credit for what he has been able to go there and do this year. But I'm not going to sit here and act like Phoenix didn't go to the bubble last year and go 8-0 either. Because when they went to the bubble last year and they went 8-0, they obviously built something, some type of trust within that unit. Monty Williams and that coaching staff, they were working during the quarantine period last year. You don't just go in there and go undefeated like that. And then it's like they came out and they played with that same exact energy. So, yes, a lot of it is Chris Paul and Jay Crowder and what they brought to the team. But whatever happened in that bubble last year, it also translated over with those young guys too. DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and even Cameron Payne, they have not been playing like young players in this series thus far. They look like savvy veterans so far against a team that's supposed to have even more savvy veterans. And shout out to the Suns for getting the job done. And Clippers, Kawhi has officially been ruled out for Game 3. And man, if they don't go home and take care of business in Game 3, it looks like Phoenix might be completing another sweep.
Yeah, that my thing. Chris Paul was my MVP for this season, simply off the fact, like, we're going off war of attrition. He stayed healthy the whole year. His team was, I think, either number 2 overall in the NBA or something up there. But even with that being said, like, I'm very, very shocked at how ready this Phoenix Suns team is for the moment, because it's not like they've been here before. This is the first time in 7 years that Devin Booker has been to a postseason. And maybe that's part of the reason why. Like, when you've waited that long, you've had time. It's almost like a reverse effect. Like, a lot of people think you'll freeze up.
Hold that thought real quick, Dev. Not to cut you off, but I got to say this real quick. You got some people out there who are comparing this Phoenix Suns team to, are they like the Golden State Warriors? No, not at all. If you want to compare any team to the Golden State Warriors, those baby Warriors, and right now, I would say it's the Atlanta Hawks. And right now, it seems a little disrespectful to say that about them because Golden State went out in the second round in 2013. The Hawks are in the conference finals right now. Yep. But no, these are not the baby Warriors at all. It's like this is their first time in the postseason, period. And they are out here just balling. It's like, I don't know if I can compare this to any team that I've seen right now. The only team that comes to mind, and I'm going to be very careful how I say this. You know what? I was going to say the 99 Spurs, and that would only be if Phoenix won the championship. But even that would be wrong because the Spurs made the playoffs in 1998. I can't compare this team to any team that I've ever seen before right now.
What about 06 Heat? Did they make it in 05?
Yes, they did. because
Oh,
Shaq
okay.
came there. Shaq came there in the 04-05 off season. It's like
All right.
I can't compare this team to anybody right now.
Anything. Yeah. Like this is it's like this team literally before I don't know what happened during that pandemic period when everybody was off, but a switch snapped. Like I don't know if they just decided they're tired of losing. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was that girl that was in the hotel. Never mind. But like I don't know what happened because this team, like I said, they aren't scared of the moment. You know, you bounce out the defending world champs in the first round in a 7-game series. Like it's not like it's win and go home like in the NFL. You know, you bounce out the defending world champs who, okay, people are gonna say Anthony Davis got hurt, whatever. Injuries happen. They bounce them out. Then in round 2, you bounce out a very talented Denver team on the road, you know, Chris Paul playing like '08 Chris Paul. And then you lose Chris Paul to COVID for some freak accident or whatever, and y'all win 2 games at home and hold down the fort without him, just in time for him to come back for a game 3 in his old stomping grounds in LA. Like this, this team is ridiculous. I think they are getting to the finals. I think they at least get the win in game 3 and then maybe lose game 4 and close it out at home. I can see them winning in 5. But yeah, this team has been ready. Devin Booker in particular has been ready for this moment for 7 years, and yeah, at this point, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say about them other than like they got to finish the job.
It
Matt,
took Devin Booker. It took him 7 years to get ready.
Matt, before you go, let me say this because Dev said that Booker's been waiting on this moment for 7 years. I don't know if I can agree with that because just 2 years ago, this man was in an open gym session crying about people doubling him in open gym. Now, if anything, I think those types of moments right there, what we've seen in the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen Devin Booker grow up a lot. Like not only just as a player, but we've seen him mature a lot as a person. He doesn't even carry himself even nearly close to the young player that he used to act like he was. So like a shout out to him on that first off. But I mean, Matt, talk to us. I mean, you're a basketball savant here. Like, have you
Yeah.
seen a team previously in history that you can currently compare Phoenix to? You know, now that I think about it, but I don't even want to go this far yet because that team didn't get the job done, and we don't know if they're going to get the job done yet. The closest thing I can think, nope, you know what? Never mind. I can't even say that because that team had players on it who had been tried, true, proven. Steve Nash had just won MVP, but he had been in the playoffs with Dallas the year before. I was going to say the only team that they remind me of are those '05 and '06 Suns, but I can't even go there with it because they had veterans who had been there and had done that even though they had not won a championship yet. I can't compare them to anything right now.
The only squad I can think of recently that went from no playoff lottery team to a finals is when LeBron James first went back to the Cleveland Cavs. But it's hard to count that because it's LeBron James. So it's like but you can kind of say LeBron James, Chris Paul is LeBron James for the Phoenix Suns. Going to a young team, you have a young star in Kyrie and Devin Booker. You kind of mold them. You getting a new coach, all that, and you kind of carry them to the finals in their first year back. So that's the only time I can think of recently I did it. But to talk about the Phoenix Suns overall, I just want to give a shout out to James Jones because he came in 2017 on that team as an assistant GM. Now he's the GM. He became the official GM, not this past offseason, but the offseason before COVID hit. Let me put it like that. The offseason before COVID hit, that was his first official GM year. First thing he did was fire the head coach and brought in Monty Williams. That was an amazing move. Some of the moves he made throughout the season, people was kind of like scratching their head at. Like when he traded, for example, when he traded T.J. Warren for cash considerations, everybody was like, "Dang, he got traded for money. He could be a good piece for y'all." But I feel like he made up for that because he traded for Mikal Bridges, and he ended up being a better piece and at a cheaper price. So, and I'm gonna say this for myself, just like Dale. Chris Paul was my MVP for the year, just based on mainly based on what he did and he was the last man standing out of the three people I thought should have won MVP. But I'm going to say this. When Chris Paul signed with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to say for myself, I have been wrong about the Phoenix Suns for a year straight. For this whole – since the moment they signed Chris Paul, I have been wrong. I remember when they signed Chris Paul, or they traded for Chris Paul to get him out of OKC, everybody was just like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. The Phoenix Suns are going to suck. Chris Paul is going to waste his time there, whatever. I came out and said they did it because they want to make the playoffs. I said they just want to make the playoffs. They don't really care about winning the championship, or they don't care about – I said they just want to make – I said Suns haven't made the playoffs in a long time. They need a veteran to come in there to teach Booker. They got Monty Williams now. They got a young player. They got Aiden. They just need somebody to come in there and teach them. They just want to make the playoffs. That's all they want. I set the ceiling for them so low. So they proved me wrong to be in the Western Conference Finals and almost about to make it to the finals. Because I know when they first happened, everybody was bashing it because they're like, that makes no sense for Chris Paul. I thought I was giving them credit. I said, well, they're going to at least make the playoffs. But they blew that prediction out the window. They doing way better than I expected, and I just want to give a shout out to the whole organization. Because if we all think about it, the Suns organization haven't always been known as a well-run organization. James Jones came there and worked a lot of magic in their organization to get to where they are now. Because they have always been known to be not the best organization. Wasting Booker talent, they drafted Aiden. People was bashing them for drafting Aiden over Luka. So they have
Bender.
Yeah, Bender. You know what I'm saying? They got the heat over the years. So, and like I said, James Jones only been as an assistant to 17 and as a full-time GM since 19. So if you just count from 19 when he took over the job completely to now, he's done wonders for that organization. And like I said, I know he not doing it himself, and I don't want to give him 100% credit, but he is the face right now. And whoever else that's behind the scenes that's helping him and doing that job, good job to everybody that's involved right now.
I'm glad you brought that point up. I'm really glad you brought that point up because I don't think people realize how bad the Suns honestly used to be from an organization standpoint. It was just 4 years ago we were sitting there hearing about there being issues with ownership and players not wanting to play there because of the ownership and the management and all of this. I don't even remember the man's name who was the previous head coach before Monty Williams. I don't remember his full name. I just remember his first name was Igor. That's what I do remember. And I remember when that hire was made, there were a lot of people who were sitting there like, what the hell is this organization doing right now hiring this man? It's like we were sitting there saying, you should have hired David Black before you hired him. And I'm going to say something about David Black in just a while too. But shout out to James Jones, man. And you know what? Let's think about this too. When he was hired as the Suns GM, or even just brought in as an assistant GM, the Cleveland Cavaliers were basically on their way to ousting David Griffin as the general manager too. And I bring up that point because James Jones was literally right there in the Cavs organization. And I just wonder if anybody went to him within Dan Gilbert's circle or Dan Gilbert himself and inquired to him about him being a member of the front office. Because if they didn't, that's just another low point in Cleveland Cavaliers history of them doing what they do best, dropping the ball.
Yeah, no,
that's a great point. That's a great point because I don't remember him being in a conversation. Pretty much all they did was let David Griffin go. He went to New Orleans, and they promoted Kobe Alton into the GM spot. And Dan Gilbert has always had a history of not want to play GMs because he feel like he's the de facto GM as the owner. So whoever's in that spot, they just kind of just doing as he wants in a sense. So he never really resigned GM. That was like a running joke that David's not going to resign you. You're going to be the GM for like 4 or 5 years, and after that, he's just going to let you walk. So if they would have bought in James, I feel like the organization, for sure, if they would have brought James in, you wouldn't constantly hear people whispering rumors about Colin Sexton every other week. I hate it for Colin Sexton. Because the moment he got there, vets have been leaking rumors and how he's not this, how he's not this. Instead of being a vet and taking him under your wing and teaching him, It's like they'd rather tell the media what he's not instead of telling everybody how hard working he is, how he stays up all night practicing, how he's the first one at the gym, how he's the last one gone. They want to leak that he doesn't pass the ball, yada, 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 and all this. But instead of taking him under the wing and trying to teach him, you for sure wouldn't hear that out of there if James Jones was there. So that's an excellent point, X, and I didn't even think about that. I do remember he was part of that championship run in 2016, and he retired right after that, or the year after that, and he went to become the GM, the assistant GM in Phoenix. So that would have been – that's an excellent point.
And think about this for a second. I'm not saying that would have also probably helped them in terms of keeping LeBron long term, because I think LeBron was on his way out of there and on his way to LA anyway, just simply because he was really thinking more so about his life after basketball, while also partially thinking about basketball at the same time too. But you wouldn't have heard about LeBron necessarily being too pissed off about David Griffin being fired if James Jones was hired as his replacement. James Jones is his guy. Like, James Jones had been with LeBron James from that point all the way up until the Miami days, all the way through that championship run in Cleveland. So you wouldn't have heard about those things either. But definitely Colin Sexton stuff. I mean, just weeks ago, we were sitting up here talking about stuff leaking out of the Cavs organization that, the people in the front office were basically told that they had to praise Colin Sexton. That man is still right there in the organization right now. Like, he's still playing on the team right now, and you letting that stuff leak out. It doesn't make any damn sense. Speaking of things that don't make any damn sense, and teams that had a chance to fire their head coach and hire Monty Williams, especially this team in particular, because he was literally sitting right there as an assistant on your bench. The Philadelphia 76ers once again will end their season without a championship with the quote-unquote process of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And it's a lot of blame that can go around here. I know a lot of it's going on Ben Simmons, but as Matt eloquently stated earlier on his podcast, why are we not looking enough at Doc Rivers too? But before we touch on that point, let's hit on something here really quickly. The Sixers were up by 18 in Game 4, and they lost that game. They were up by 26 in Game 5, and they lost that game. They went to Atlanta, and they won a game that, honestly, I couldn't believe they won. And honestly, in Game 7, I was just waiting at one point for the Sixers to just take over and blow that thing open, and it didn't happen. Shout out to Joel Embiid for playing on a slightly torn meniscus, even though he did wilt down a little there down the stretch in the fourth quarter. He started out the fourth quarter strong. Shout out to Tobias Harris for at least putting up shots. He did at least get to 21 points in that game, maybe 22 or 23. Shout out to him for putting up shots. Shout out to Tyrese Maxey for the moments he had in that series. Young player stepping up big in moments. Shout out to Shake Milton as well. Shout out to Tybal for the defense that he played in there as well. The one person who won't be getting a shout out from me is Ben Simmons, because I still have that image in my head in Game 7 of him turning around, having a wide open dunk or layup, and he turned around, and instead of laying it up, he passed it to Matisse Thybulle, who misses the dunk attempt, and then he turns around and he looks at him like he did something wrong. I don't get it.
Oh man, you're funny. That's funny.
So anybody that watched or listened to my podcast this week, as far as your thing about Doc Rivers, I have not been giving him slack since last year. When he blew a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets last year, I was on his ass. And it's like, bro, when we got to have a conversation about Doc, because somebody brought this stat up. He has had 29 game-winning games that he's coached in his career. I take that back. He has lost 29 times when he's had a chance to advance in a 7-game series or in a whatever the series was at the time. 29 times he's lost, which is the most by any coach ever. Like, that is inexcusable. And I know he's a black man. I always got to root for the brothers when they're coaching. I get that. But, bro, like, I remember the meltdown in 2015 when Houston beat them in the 3-1 lead, and they were up 25 at home and Josh, Josh Richardson brought them back because Harden fouled out or
No.
something.
It was
Like,
Josh Smith. It was Josh
Josh
Smith.
Smith.
You gotta make sure we get that one right.
Yeah, my fault. Josh Smith brought them back because Harden either fouled out or I don't remember what happened. And so Josh Smith and some other people brought them back. I remember that. I remember it was like a couple years after that it happens again. Then it happened again last year. I'm like, bro, how many times are we gonna keep giving Doc Rivers the benefit of the doubt because he won that one title in '08? Like, you know. And same thing we were saying about Rick Carlisle in Dallas, but at a different level. But it's like, man. And then Ben Simmons, I mean, I don't know what else to say, bro. Like, why are you worried about Trae Young fouling you in that Game 7 situation where he passed the dunk up? I'm like, bro, there was nothing Trae Young is going to do in that situation. There is nothing he can do in that situation. It's like my man's Mark Phillips said, who on the Hawks is scaring you? Who is scaring you, bro? Like, this is I've said what I'm like. They gotta blow it up. The process is done. It didn't work. It wasn't working from the beginning. Ben Simmons has to go. They better trade Embiid while they can. Just blow the whole thing up and let Daryl Morey build this thing up from scratch because it's a wrap. Like, this is deeper than Doc Rivers at this point.
Bro, I agree with you that it is deeper than Doc Rivers. I agree with you there. And I said it and I listened to your podcast too, Dev, and I heard you give Doc Rivers his just due. So I heard your stance on Doc Rivers in advance. So I did see that. But my only thing is, honestly, like I'm holding Doc Rivers account, and I understand y'all frustration with Bingy. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. My only stance was I don't want to put it all on Ben. Like I said, Ben is going to get crucified for the media,
Right.
for the fans. He's going to take all the blame, and they're going to come back next season. They may trade Ben, and the same thing is going to happen, and they're going to look for somebody else to blame instead of getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem, I feel like, is something going on in their front office, their culture, their trust the process stuff must have scarred them. Because I remember once I had listened to an interview with a former player, and he said, and this is football though. Football is completely different from basketball. He said tanking in football can damage the whole locker room. Like, not even just for that season, going forward, it can damage the whole locker room. Where their mindset is like, y'all intentionally wanting us to throw games. We can't trust you on some stuff. And the whole culture of the organization is down because of that. So that's why you never really hear football players talk about tanking, because like they take that as disrespect. Like they'll get upset with you if you tell them that they're tanking, because it's like, that's not nothing you play about in football. And basketball is done more because you seen Joel, his nickname is Trust the Process. So he obviously was fine with it. And it's kind of, and I'm gonna be honest, both y'all made like compelling points about this Trust the Process stuff and about blowing it up, because just on X last episode, I was the main one talking about, you gotta tank. That's the only way to build a franchise. You gotta tank. And I'm looking horrible right now. They got me looking.
I'm just like, yo, it hasn't worked. Like, you look at the 5, 6, or 7 years that they've been saying it, and it didn't work when they first started it because Noel was a bust, Jahlil Okafor was a bust, Ben Simmons, I'm not gonna call him a bust yet, but he's teetering. And it's like they haven't made a single conference.
Experiment didn't work.
Markelle Fultz experiment didn't work either. They haven't made a single Eastern Conference Finals. They lost some heartbreakers like that game to Kawhi when they was a couple bobbles away from going.
And they let Jimmy go. Like,
they let Jimmy go. They chose
that's who
Brett
probably could
Brown
have rebuilt
Jimmy
that
Butler.
culture for them.
They let. And Jimmy
Mm.
tried to tell us, and I don't know if we were listening or not, but Jimmy tried to tell us about them. You know,
the media painted Jimmy as a problem. He was in Chicago, he was a problem. He was in Minnesota, he was a problem. He was in Philly, he was a problem. It's just that Jimmy didn't go for that BS. He wanted to go somewhere.
He wasn't with the BS.
Chicago was with losing, had a losing culture. He wasn't with it. He got to Minnesota, Cat was lazy. He wasn't with it. He got to Philly. He realized they front office and their head coach was BS. He wasn't with it. Now he in Miami with Pat Riley. He's thriving. But yeah, man, just to touch on that again, man. Just like to go back to your point about all the players they drafted that didn't work out, all the moves they made that didn't work out, letting Jimmy go, signing Tobias Harris, signing Al Horford a couple years ago, all the moves they're making. That's why I say it boils down to the front office, the culture of the organization. That's the root of the issue. Doc Rivers is a problem, yes. Ben Simmons is a problem, yes. But until they fix what's going on in that front office, and I don't know what it is. Like I said on my podcast, if I had a plug in Philly, I'll find out. If I was a beat writer
I think it's
in
very
Philly,
easy.
I'll find out.
Matt, not to cut you off, but I think it's very easy to actually figure out what the problem is there. What's the common denominator here? It's the ownership. It's got to be, because think about it. It was problematic under Sam Hinkie. It was problematic when Brian Colangelo took over. And now
You got Brian Colangelo making burner accounts talking bad about players. Like, that is a cultural thing. That's not Doc Rivers' fault, bro.
Got his wife snitching on him.
Right. Like,
I forgot all about that.
And now you have a general manager and a vice president or a president of basketball operations in there who is coming off of almost a decade-long period of having teams that consistently make the playoffs get in there. And he inherited a much better situation from a talent standpoint here than what he inherited when he first got to Houston.
X.
It's the ownership. It's got to be something with the ownership at this point. And that's a problem I don't know if you can fix.
I agree 100%. I mean, I should have thought about that and I didn't, but that's the only comment that I made. Like you said, like everybody pieces keep getting moved in and out, and the results are still the same. So it has to be the consistent person, which is the ownership. And like you said, that's going to be hard to fix. Daryl Morey and Elsa Brand got to be strong-willed in order to stand on what they stand on and let the owners know that, hey, we are doing it this way if y'all want results. But that's going to be a tough hill to climb.
And you got to think about this too. I'm not even the biggest Daryl Morey fan, as y'all know. But this team wasn't even close to being constructed the way that Daryl Morey teams are constructed. They're constructed based off of statistics and analytics. This isn't exactly one of those teams I would say that you construct off of consistency and analytics and statistics. Now, if you want to get a bunch of talent together on paper, then yes, this is that type of team. You want to get freak athletes, lockdown defenders together on paper, yes, that's it. But compared to what we're used to Daryl Morey having success with, this wasn't it. But thank you, Dev, for bringing up the Doc Rivers point, because let me bring up the point in what saved Doc Rivers. And I'm also bringing up the point that saved Rick Carlisle in Dallas a long time ago, too. Yes, they were living off of their lone championships that they won, Doc Rivers in 2008, Rick Carlisle in 2011. What also happened a few years after that? Why did we even start thinking of Doc Rivers again as an elite coach in this league? Remember the 2019 playoff run with the Clippers after he traded Tobias away, after he traded some of those other players, key players, and everybody's like, Clippers are tanking. They're just tanking. They're waiting to go get two other superstars in the offseason, hoping that they come over here. That team didn't tank at all. They surprised everybody. They not only made the playoffs, they gave the Golden State Warriors at full strength a better run than anybody was even coming close to giving them when they were at that level. That's why we even started thinking of Doc again as an elite head coach, because after 15, 16, 17, he kind of fell off the radar there a little bit. Now, let me bring up a Rick Carlisle point here a little bit, too, on what saved him in Dallas a little bit longer. Championship in 2011, yeah. Do we not remember that 2014 playoff team that made the playoffs and gave the San Antonio Spurs an unexpected 7-game run that they gave them? This was the year before they got run, though, when they had Monte Ellis and Dirk was still in there doing Dirk-like things, even though he was no longer in his prime anymore. And Vince Carter was playing and hitting clutch shots in the corner. Like, they gave San Antonio a legitimate 7-game series where we were like, are the Spurs really going to lose in the first round? Now, that didn't end up happening, but the coaching job that he did there against a mastermind like Greg Popovich, that helped save him a little bit longer in Dallas. Even though that was 7 years ago, that still helped save him, because it was like, yo, when it matters the most, he can put something together. That's why we were even thinking about them still as top 5 level coaches in the league.
And I think Doc Rivers also, he had the whole Donald Sterling thing too, because like people saw how he guided his team through that mess, and that probably helped him extend his career a little bit too. Because it's like, I mean, granted, yeah, they lost the series, but I mean, just to weed through that kind of might have helped his reputation a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but and especially the way the NBA is going, like in terms of a image standpoint, like it makes sense. But like, yeah, it like we were saying, like Doc Rivers, Ben Simmons, both of them are like easy targets. But this is from a organizational standpoint, and generally most teams, if they're struggling in any sport, the owner's always going to be to blame. But that's like the one problem you can't fix because you can't force an owner to sell. Because even Donald Sterling, like he wasn't gonna sell until his wife like hijacked him, So that's one of the problems where you're gonna have to take that to the chin and just hope that you can keep hiring people that know what they're doing. But they just, I don't know, like they got to figure it out.
Not only that, but I mean, let's also think about this too. And this is the point that needs to be made when it comes to Doc Rivers. I heard this a little while back, and when you honestly put more thought into it, it's really even more true every single year that goes by. Unless Doc Rivers has a close to in his prime or at the back end of his prime Kevin Garnett, he can't do anything.
That's
And
a fact.
and that's just pretty much what it comes down to.
He it's like that moment you just spoke of what he did in the Clippers and the thing that he did in Orlando his last year there. Doc Rivers it seems like he does more with an undersized team, but when expectations are placed on him, that's when he kind of comes up short. In a lot of ways, Brad Stevens he does good with undersized teams, but when you put them expectations and superstars on this team, it's like if he don't have the best player on his team, he go come up short because he can't wield or coach that undersized team with a superstar over the hump over a better team. But when his whole squad is undersized and there's no chance they the underdog, he comes out on top. And if he don't come out on top, he at least make it look good.
Definitely, for sure. And I see our brother Lawrence Vaughn is now in the building. He's joining us. Lawrence, what's going on, bro?
How y'all boys doing? Sorry for my tardiness. I had some personal matters to take care of.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So we just sitting up here, and before we move fully into this whole Ben Simmons and him possibly being traded in the offseason move, we're just sitting here talking about the problems within the Sixers organization from within. And, what we've come down to, honestly, is the common denominator is with the ownership. It's real easy to look at Ben and Doc and even Daryl Morey here if you want to, but you got to look at the fact that Sam Hinkie, that was a disaster. We understand that, but they were intentionally tainted. Brian Colangelo comes in and he somewhat gets the organization turned around. And Daryl Morey comes in and he inherits the best crop of talent that he could have inherited walking into a situation. Yet and still, we still hear about issues of dysfunction within the organization. It's like the only common denominator that's there at this point is the ownership. It's something with the ownership that people are not talking about. And you've got to believe that there are insiders within Philadelphia or within those circles that know this for a fact, but they probably just don't want to bring it up. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was listening to Open Stride podcast earlier today, and just really opened my mind to some great points about some under the cover things that could be going on in there. Everybody got their secrets, everybody got their skeletons in the closet. I believe that. And in Open Stride podcast, there were some excellent points made to why the blame shouldn't necessarily be put on Ben. My thing though is just kind of like it's hard for me not to give Ben blame because it's like at the end of the day, you're the one lacing up. Now, all the stuff that goes on in the front office, it's kind of like it's kind of like I feel like it tells more about the player's character not to address it opposed to the front office just letting it slide. Because I don't know if any of y'all got the notification now, but earlier this week or even into last week, the Wisconsin players stepped to their head coach, basically talking about how, we don't think that you for us. We don't think that you got our back. Woo-doo-doo-woo. He lost 7 of his 8 seniors, and it really made him take a step back and reevaluate himself. So my kind of thing is like, people will do as much as you let them do. And if the players aren't holding them accountable, wanting better, wanting to be better, then the dysfunctional front office is going to keep being dysfunctional. Somebody has to be a leader. I don't care if it's Doc. I don't care if it's Seth. I don't care if it's Ben or Joel. Somebody got to step up and be a leader for the organization, because right now it's just like a daycare. The kids are running the kids. So who's going to step up and be an actual leader both on and off the court?
One thing I want to add, and those are excellent points, Lawrence. Those are excellent points you made as far as being a leader. They do need that. And that kind of goes into a point about Doc Rivers needing that dominant player to take the leadership role, to kind of take some pressure off him. One thing I want to add about finding out what's really going on in Philly, it kind of reminds me, and I think, X, you just said it about an insider, or like I said, a beat writer, or somebody has to be the one to find out what's going on in Philly. But if you may need somebody from the outside to come in. It honestly remind me of, I forget the guy's name. I can't give him a shout out for his reporting. When I find it, I'll let you know. But the guy that broke the story on Tom Brady and Bill Belichick having their issues, that wasn't a Boston reporter. That was somebody from the outside that got a source, they got a link, came into Boston and did some research and broke their story. Nobody in Boston broke that. So that had been going on for some time, and they was kind of like hiding it pretty much, like not speaking on it. And I feel like the same thing is going on in Philly. Like people out there know what's going on, but they just don't want to speak on it. They don't want to leak it out. So it's probably gonna take like an outside person like that, and like that Boston and New England situation, where somebody on the outside got to come in and figure out what's going on and break their story for the public. So we'll finally be like, now that's why they've been having all this turmoil within this organization.
Would you be willing to be that just hypothetically speaking, like, I know a lot of times people don't necessarily want to take those risks because it's like you basically biting the hand that feeds. You know what I'm saying? Like, this will mess up your money, this can mess up your housing, all that kind of stuff. And not necessarily with the Philadelphia, but would you be a person, or even you, X, would you be a person that's like, look, something wrong is going on here. People try to figure out what it is. I'm gonna be the one to break it, regardless of if I lose my job or whatever. They gonna hear the truth, or I'm gonna uncover the truth, because, like was said, especially on Open Stride podcast, it don't make sense. Like, how you got all these top players? Even this year, Doc had 3 all defensive players. Some not adding up. Like, you had 3 all defensive players. You were the number 1 overall seed. JoJo MVP candidate. It's something. It's something to where it's like what, man, this is another little inside tip. For y'all that aren't subscribed to Open Stride Podcast, y'all need to get on it. I just want to say, it was said that Ben Simmons, like, don't work out. He doesn't put it to work. Like, that's kind of stuff that somebody got to, hey, Bleacher Report, hey, ESPN. Like, somebody got to know, like, because I feel like we live in a society now to where it's like, if it's just you in the mirror, like you versus it's easy to hide your insecurities. It's easy to hide, like, oh, I know I should be putting in work, but I'm not going to right now. Nobody's going to know except me. But when the world know and people like, hey, bro, did you put up your shots? Hey, bro, did you run your 5 miles? Then it's like, dang, the city really counting on me instead of only coming down on me when we lose, or only, yelling my name when we win. So, hey, for all y'all listeners out there, get on that Open Stride podcast, because that's where the tea is.
And I second that motion 100%. Before we jump into the next topic, the Atlanta Hawks got it done tonight, y'all. Winning 116-113 on the road. Trae Young, a 48-piece, extra crispy, 11 honey butter biscuits, 7 coleslaws of baked beans on the side, however you want to look at. He straight up delivered a full course meal tonight for them, man. It's like, I picked the Bucks to win this series in 6. I still think they're gonna win the series because I think some adjustments are gonna be made. But man,
He a bad boy.
he is.
That's a bad boy, man.
This is
I
something
can't even
special. Like, And for me being from Georgia, being from the Atlanta area, this is something special because I'm not a Hawks fan, but it's like I am still from the state. I still do have ties to the team. And it's like this is the first superstar in my lifetime that I have seen on that basketball team. Joe Johnson was not a superstar. He was an all-star. Don't get me started with Josh Smith. I heard somebody on Twitter the other night saying Hawks legend Josh Smith. And I'm just like, what legend is Josh Smith in it? Like, besides being a highlight reel with electrifying dunks, like, what? It's like the bar is set very low if we're saying things like that. So we need to be very careful how we use some of these words at times. But
he's a robber too. He a stick up kid. He robbed the Detroit Pistons organization.
Yes, he did.
He said, "Lay on the ground, spread your arms. You just been robbed."
Yes, he did. But also, shame on them too for thinking that he was on that level and giving him that money. But shout out to Trae Young,
that
man.
was horrible. Oh yeah, Trae, man. He's like, I'm gonna be honest. I said it not even before the season started. I said Atlanta is becoming my favorite team in the East. Like Houston, I'm riding with Houston over everybody, regardless of who they play. That's my squad. But Eastern Conference wise, I was liking Atlanta only because of Trae. And like I said, once they got Clint, that even made it better because Clint came from Houston. And I feel like we never should have traded Trent. So once he lost Trent, he went to Atlanta. I was like, okay, it's solidified. They my squad. Coming into the season, they wasn't getting it done. And I just could not understand why they was not getting it done. Like I was watching them like, dog, y'all have the talent. Y'all have the star. Y'all have the big man. Like, what else are y'all missing? And it was the coach. Once Nate Millen took over the situation, he did some things. Shout out to Lower Price. I hope he find him another job. I hope someone to pick him up. But he just wasn't the man for that job. Nate came in. He implemented defense on that team. He was like, okay, obviously y'all can shoot anybody out the gym once y'all get hot. And X kind of said, I think, didn't you say they were like the baby Golden State or baby Warriors?
Yeah, but I also said earlier in this show, I think it's a little disrespectful to say that about them because Golden State only made it to the second round in 2013. The Hawks are in the conference finals, and they have a lead in these conference finals after game one.
Yeah, I agree. So it just that they really shocking everybody. And I mean, they shocked everybody because a lot of people picked Knicks to beat them. They beat them East, should have swept them. Then everybody like, okay, Philly go get it done. They got Joel, they got Ben. It's over. They beat them in 7, and now they just gave Greek Freak his first L in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's like at some point we got to stop being surprised at what they're doing and just hold them to the standard of who they are. And they're just an amazing team, making it an amazing run, and it's amazing to see Nate McMillan make these runs in the playoffs because up to this point he never won a playoff series. He made that was always Nate McMillan's problem. He can come to a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, get them playing good, get them into the playoffs, but make it to the first round or lose. That's why he would keep getting fired because he never had playoff success. But now he got the superstar he wanted, he got the talent he need, and he's doing wonderful. And I'm extremely proud of him and the stuff he's doing right now.
Let me go ahead and jump on to the next topic. We kind of somewhat already segued into it. Speaking of those Detroit Pistons, the ping pong balls fell their way this year. They won last night's NBA draft lottery to successfully win the number 1 overall draft pick in this year's draft. I thought Hakeem Olajuwon being the representative for the Rockets last night was going to bring them a little luck similar to 1984 when they drafted them, but it didn't exactly fall their way last night. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either because everybody's talking about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs, rightfully so. Nobody's talking about Evan Mobley, and I don't understand why. And honestly, I think he'd be a good fit for Houston, just being honest with you. But, we'll see. I mean, Matt, I see you don't like the pick, but I said it last night, and I'll say it again. It won't surprise me if Evan Mobley ends up being the best player to come out of this draft. It just won't. I didn't watch much of him at USC, but in the 2 games that I did watch, I was just like, damn, this is a bad boy right here. And shout out to Lawrence because he had been coming in the chat trying to tell us all season long, hey, look, USC got some guys over here, man. Evan Mobley in particular. He's going to be some bad dudes when they get to the league. And I'm not used to great NBA talents coming out of USC, just being honest. When I think about pro talents that come out of USC in sports, I automatically think of the NFL. I don't think about basketball. But, shout out to them. Hopefully the Pistons don't mess this up. I believe their organization is headed in the right direction as their legendary 2004 world champion defensive player of the year center Ben Wallace said last night. Having somebody like Dwayne Casey at the helm as the head coach who has been there and rebuilt an organization in the past like the Toronto Raptors, I believe that's the right thing for that team going forward. They did play hard at times this year. And the more I slept on it, the more I'm like, it makes all the sense in the world for this team to draft Cade Cunningham. Because I know I said something different last night, but it makes all the sense in the world to me.
I want Lawrence to go first.
I just want to hop in here.
Yeah. You got to go. Go ahead.
I just want to say, one, I've definitely been on the Evan Mobley train all year. So I knew Mans could hoop. He was a killer for the Compton Magic coming out of high school. Instantly elevated the Trojan squad this year to the Elite Eight. It was funny because his older brother, Isaiah, was on the team last year, and they're the same body measurements, all that. But Isaiah, I don't know what it was, but Evan gets on the squad in Elite Eight. I'm not so sure I'm sold on Cade going to Detroit as much as I would have been Cade going to Houston, simply because Detroit just drafted a point guard last year in Killian Hayes. Now, I did look up Killian's measurements. He's standing at 6'5", and Cade stands at 6'8". But I don't know if Cade can adapt to off the ball game, because seeing Cade's game, he's a ball dominant guard. He needs the ball in his hand. That's why I would have loved him in Houston. I would have even loved him in, say, Toronto. But to be in Detroit where you just drafted a point guard, I feel that could be definitely throwing your player under the bus and saying, hey, we don't don't believe in you at all. We just drafted you because you were there last year. For Detroit, I feel like they could go a multitude of ways. I feel like Detroit could very well go Evan Mobley, give you a cornerstone there since you got people robbing you blindly, Blake Griffin. You could go Jalen Green. You could go Jonathan, forgive me if I butcher your last name, Kumunga, a strong athletic wing that could really give you some excitement. But just like Eli said, Jalen Green has the potential to be the best player in this draft. I feel like a Killian Hayes, Jalen Green backcourt would do more in the long haul instead of trying to force two point guards on each other, what we see Cleveland trying to do every single year in the draft, taking Colin Sexton and then Darius Garland in back-to-back drafts and trying to recreate the Stephen Curry, Monte Ellis mold. That's you can't recreate it. There's only one Stephen Curry. There's only one Monte Ellis. You can't recreate a old mold. Now you can bring in players that are similar to it and try to create something new, try to catch lightning in a bottle. But I just wouldn't like Cade in Detroit because you just drafted Killian Hayes.
You bring up a good point there. Let me say this before Matt goes here really quickly. Two things. First of all, congratulations to the Pistons on winning the draft. The Raptors, I don't know how they fell as far as they did. And to the player who gets drafted at number 3, I will sincerely be praying for you, dog, because you are going to the moribund Cleveland Cavaliers organization. And Lawrence, you bring up the Colin Sexton, Darius Garland trying to create the Stephen Monte Warriors point. This is pretty obvious what I'm about to say because as we know, the Cleveland Cavaliers organization is just awful. But why would you want to recreate something that didn't really work and have much success in the first place? I don't understand that. But I don't understand many things that the Cleveland Cavaliers organization does at this point. Matt, go ahead and take it. The floor is yours.
Okay, one thing I just want to add is that in 1984, when the Houston Rockets had the number one pick, and we took Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, we made a horrible decision. Horrible decision. We made probably one of the worst decisions. I ain't gonna say the worst all time, but maybe a top 5 worst decision all time, because we could have had Michael Jordan. At the end of the day, we could have had Michael Jordan. That's like the Miami Heat. That's like the Cleveland Cavaliers taking Wade instead of LeBron, and Wade having a good career, all-time great career. But you could have had LeBron. You see what I'm saying? We should have had Mike. X, I see you. I see you don't like that. I know you're a big fan of Hakeem, and I understand that. But we made a horrible decision.
What I don't understand is that you're saying that about somebody who was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, a league MVP, and the man on 2 teams that won the 2 lone championships in the Houston Rockets organization history. I think it's kind of hard to say that that's a horrible mistake. I understand Michael Jordan is Jordan. Jordan is the Don Dada. I got that. I understand that. But it's kind of hard to say that about somebody who did the things that Hakeem did in the league, in particular with the Rockets organization.
Listen, I appreciate him. It's all love, Hakeem. Appreciate you. But I would much rather have 6 rings than 2. I would much rather have the GOAT on my squad. Well, even though I think LeBron the GOAT now. But if Jordan was on the Houston Rockets, I'd probably be his biggest advocate of him being the GOAT. So I'm going to leave that there. All right, so just to jump into the NBA draft, I'm really not sure. Okay, I'm going to first touch on Lawrence's point. Killian Hayes is a good player, but you can't pass up K, dog. I don't, honestly, I don't care if they literally both played. If Killian was a center and K was a center, I would still say draft K, because K, seriously, K is the best.
I only
were both sinners.
Look, I only understand that if you're saying you can trade Killian. Honestly, that's the only way I understand that.
I'm saying regardless of what I'm saying, it's kind of like the old Bobby Knight saying when the Portland Trailblazers was like, we need a center, and he said draft Michael Jordan and play him at center. That's the same way I feel about the Detroit Pistons. Nobody's on that squad is so much good at their position that you can't take the best player in the draft. That's all I'm saying. Like, I feel the same way about Houston.
He ain't had time to prove it.
I'm saying though, even him not having time to prove it, Cade is ranked higher than him overall coming out of college. That's what
real.
I'm saying.
That's real. Well, Cade came from France. Killian came from France.
That's what I'm saying. So, but like I said, I feel like they can play together. Cade 6'8".
Yeah. That's
6'5".
That's what I was trying to get. I didn't know that. So, like, when I've been talking about before, I didn't know. I thought Killian was a little bit smaller.
Oh no, he's tall. He's a big guard.
With Killian, and that threw me last night when I looked at it. I was like, oh snap, Killian 6'5".
The only reason I knew
6'8".
The only reason I knew that about Killian because he was my dark horse to win Rookie of the Year last year, and the only reason I said that was because before training camp even started, the Detroit Pistons named him their starting point guard. So I was just like, okay, he's 6'5". They named him the starting point guard. He's gonna be. If anything, he's gonna get put in the opportunity to do something. He ended up getting hurt, and it didn't work out like that. And even if it did work out like that, Melo and Ant played out their mind, and so he wasn't gonna get it anyway. So that's the only reason I know a little bit about Killian. But the Detroit Pistons have nobody literally, so they need somebody like him. And they have the good thing about them, they have Dwayne Casey, like X said. They also have a black GM and Troy Reaver, I believe that's his name. They have a black GM, black head coach, and that's one of the reasons Jeremy Grant said he went there was because of that. So he was like, "Yeah, I want to play for a black coach and a black GM. Perfect, beautiful, black excellence." Speaking on the Houston Rockets point, Mobley, it's just like it's hard for me to trust another big man out of college. That's all it is. It's hard for me to trust another big man out of college. Aiden was the one that scarred me, and now he's doing better. But he scarred me. I was just like, oh, yeah, Aiden the man. He about to come in the league and do his thing. He came out the first year, and I was just like, Second year, I was looking, now he in his third year, and he really didn't do that good all season until the playoffs. Just when it count the most, but he's doing it. So, but Mobley, he's more of a defensive player, and I feel like when the offense, the only good thing about Mobley though is that he played at USC. He proved to be a valuable player by helping USC get to the Elite Eight, and Kevin Porter is already on the squad, and they both are alums of USC. So he might be in the ear of the Rockets, like, hey, that's it. He is. And not saying Kevin Porter got any pull with the Rockets, but he had a good straight back season this past season. He proved that he's an NBA player. He could a guaranteed starter, if not a starter, definitely a role player. I don't feel like he's a starter on a championship team, but I definitely feel like he's a good role player on the championship team. And with the talent we have, that's pretty much a starter on our squad because we don't have much. So Christian Woods, that'd be my only thing is that we got Christian Woods and Evan. I don't know how that would work together with both of them together. But because one of them would have to play the five.
I also asked this question too because he started to come on a little bit more in the later part of the season. Do you also look at Kenyon Martin Jr. as a part of the team's future going forward? Because if you do, maybe that's something that detours you away from drafting Evan Mobley.
I just want to add one more quick thought. Oh, go ahead. My fault.
No, add it. Go ahead.
Oh, for sure. I just want to add one more quick thought in there that I know USC, known for the football, but we cannot roll over the basketball alums. Shout out DeMar DeRozan. Shout out OJ Mayo. We got some star-studded players at USC that have come through them halls. So we're not just a bunch of scrubs, but shout out DeMar DeRozan.
Well, with USC, I honestly feel like in college, big cities don't matter as much in college as they do in the NBA. And I say that because you can have a school that's in a big city, a glamour city, and they can be sucked. But you can have some rinky-dink school, not rinky-dink school, but some big school in a small city, and they could be the biggest program in the country. So I was going to say I'm surprised USC doesn't have a better basketball program. I'm not saying it's bad, but a better well-known program, seeing that it is in California, Southern California at that. But, like, big cities don't really matter in college at the end of the day. It's all about the coaches and then brand names and stuff like that. But
UCLA stole it all.
Yeah.
Like, they right across town. UCLA stole it all from 11 natties, and then
it's kind of hard to overcome a cloud that big too.
Yeah. Kind of like the Lakers and the Clippers, wouldn't you say?
Very much so.
I see what you're saying, but USC is not no pushover like organization as far as the school. Like that's like a whole nother conversation. So let's stay on the draft. I let Lawrence speak when it comes to draft because he's the native draft guru out our group. So X is the historian. Like anytime you want to know any facts that you don't know from the 1960s, he's the historian. He's gonna let you know. I'm not a historian like that. Lawrence is the draft guru. So anytime you want to know something about the draft, he's the perfect person to go to. So that's why I let him speak when he wants to say something. But it's like I want to believe that Suggs is our guy. I truly want to believe that Suggs is our guy. I truly want to believe that. Suggs is giving me Trey Burke vibes, though. So that's what's scaring me about Suggs. Like, he's giving me Trey Burke vibes. And I say that only because Trey Burke was given the keys to the franchise of the Utah Jazz, and he couldn't live up to the hype. He couldn't live up to the hype. They literally drafted him and said, okay, this whole franchise is yours. Boom. And that's why when people say that Donovan Mitchell was in a better situation than most players, that's why he had so much success in Utah. I say, yes, that's true. He was in a better situation, but he still had to deliver. Like, he could be in the best situation. If he's not a baller, he's not a baller. And Donovan Mitchell proved to be a baller, so that's why he's succeeding in that good situation. But if you would have gave that same opportunity to countless other players, they would have folded in that situation. So when I say he gives me Trey Burke vibes, I don't want him to come there and be that one player that shines in college and gets to the league and the stage is just too big, like it was with Trey Burke. But if I'm being honest, I want to believe that Suggs is our guy. I don't believe we're going to get Cade. Cade's only working out for Detroit anyway. He said it before the lottery. that I'm only working out for the team that gets the number one pick. And that's good for him. Go get your money, young man. I don't know who representing you. The way you moving, it sounds like Clutch Force got you. But I don't know. So go do your thing, man. I hope you shine. But I would like to have. I want to say I think Suggs is our guy. That's what I want to believe.
Okay, here's what I'll say to your Trey Burke point here really quickly. It's kind of a perfect scenario because if y'all were to draft Jalen Suggs, he would be walking into a situation very similar to what Trey Burks walked into in Utah. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that organization right now. As much as we want to root for the brothers and root for the black men to do well, man, I don't know what the likelihood is that Steven Silas is still the head coach in Houston after next year, no matter what happens in that organization. And if you'll remember, Trey Burke walked into Utah when Tyrone Corbin was still the head coach of that team. And there was already uncertainty surrounding that situation. Lo and behold, he wasn't there too much longer after that. And I think it would be a very similar situation to that right there. Some of these guys, I'm not sure if there's a single prospect in this draft that you would say can walk into any given situation and just thrive right now. I don't know if you have that particular prospect in this draft. I don't know.
Maybe. I would say this. Whoever goes to Toronto would be in a good situation. I would say that. Whichever player gets drafted by Toronto will be in a good situation only because, like I said it before on X. I came on X show before, and I said I didn't like the way Fred VanVleet leadership style was. I didn't like the way he yelled at players and kind of talked to players. I didn't like that. Maybe he's coming around and becoming a better leader, but losing Kyle Lowry is going to hurt them a lot. Losing that veteran leadership when they lost Serge Ibaka and Marcus Gasol proved to be a big loss from them. Like, just because a player is not who they were in the past, them having that presence in that locker room, that leadership in that locker room does a lot. So I feel like the player that goes to Toronto would be in a better situation than most of everybody that's going in the lottery, at least the top half of the lottery.
I would say that the only player I could think that fits X's description is Cade. Like you were saying, Matt, Evan is more of a defensive player, but I've seen offensive flashes in him. But Cade's the only dude I've seen. It doesn't keep this like condensed within the lottery. Cade's the only prospect I've seen that you can stick him on any team.
Wait, I might do my Stephen A. I don't want to hear that from you. If X said that, I'll take that. Well, X did say that, but I don't want to hear that from you because you said this draft class is supposed to produce 5 or 6 superstars. So
they're there.
So okay then. So expand on X point.
I'm talking about producing from day one though. Like day one starter, I'm in the league. I can give you 20 right now.
Okay.
Now over the long, because now look at your boy DeAndre Ayton. It took him a minute to get him rolling.
He did.
This draft is loaded. Like this draft is loaded. Even when you go down the list outside the lottery, you look at Jalen Johnson from Duke. You look at Keon Johnson from Tennessee. Like this draft got some gazelle, some deer running out there in them lanes, filling them lanes up now. But I'm just talking about day one. I need somebody who can come in here and give me 20 points that can be effective or even win me a game. That's Cade. That's Cade now.
And let me add this point here to it too. It should absolutely frighten everyone in the basketball world that the Golden State Warriors have the 7th and 14th picks in these drafts.
Woo! Because look, I'm gonna tell y'all a dark horse right now. You heard it here first. If they find a way to get Scotty Barnes,
I knew you were gonna say him. I knew it.
If they find a way to get Scotty Barnes and get him around some shooters.
Hey, so I got a question for you. Are you trading D-Lo for Andrew Wiggins in the number 7 pick?
No.
What about you, Lois?
Say it again. What's the trade?
Are you trading D-Lo for Andrew Wiggins in the number 7 pick?
No. I'm biased because I don't believe in Andrew. I don't believe Andrew Wiggins should even be in the league.
So I'm
So
saying that's pretty much what Minnesota gave up for him. They gave up Andrew Wiggins and the number 7 pick.
At number 7, though, I would and you said trading D'Angelo, I would have to know that a point guard would still be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have to know that Suggs
I feel you.
is still there on the board. Like, I'm not making that pool, and there ain't no point guard there.
I would have to know that it's a star that could potentially still be there, period. And I don't know if we've seen teams necessarily make moves like this since. It's hard for me to say a recent draft that I can remember where we remember teams making moves just year before because you knew this prospect is coming up at this amount of time. Maybe you can say 03 because around 01 and 2000, people started watching LeBron at high school, young phenom, and teams started intentionally making moves to try to make their way up in that 03 draft because you knew he was going to be there more than likely. Other than that, I don't know if I can really say that about any other draft since then. And honestly, I'm too young to even remember when that happened. So maybe I'm speaking a little out of term there. But the
one thing you could add on, this is the last thing I gotta say about it. They said that it was reported. I mean, it is Popovich, it is R.C. Buford and the whole Spurs organization. They were saying that they when David Robinson went down, that the Spurs start tanking because they wanted to get Tim Duncan. So that's a situation where tanking actually did work, but I don't know if that's Papa never admit that. R.C. Buford, the whole Spurs, they never admit that, but it was people were saying that they started to tank because they wanted to get Tim Duncan out that draft.
My only thing with that is in 97, the draft lottery still existed. It was still a thing in 97. So it's like that you know for a fact that you were going to get Tim Duncan by doing that. Because I honestly believe that's true. Because not only was it David Robinson on that team, think about it, I think this was the last season of his career. Dominique Wilkins was also on that team too. And I think he went down in that season, or he was the best player on that team that season, one or the other, but Dominique wasn't the Dominique that could carry you to the playoffs anymore. But yes, I definitely believe that in that season when David Robinson went down, they said, all right, let's try to tank and go get Tim Duncan because they were looking forward to the long-term future. But if they don't get Tim Duncan, we're not having conversations that we're having about the Spurs right now either. So I'm not exactly going to say that teams need to employ that strategy.
Facts.
Lawrence, do you have anything else that you want to add to this topic?
I'm just can't wait for the Lakers to pick at 22. There's going to be some real diamonds in the rough right there for us to grab. Josh Christopher. I just feel like we're back in it. I do believe, though, that we can possibly see the quickest turnaround from worst to best with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have enough ammunition to really shake the room. And I mean, like, it could be scary hours if they pick the right people. Because I believe they had picks 5 and 8. I think that's OKC's picks.
For them to do that, though, they would have to have a better season than the current Phoenix Suns right now, though. Because they had a good turnaround themselves. X brought it up earlier, but we never really seen the team do it like that. So
true, yeah. But I would say even if OKC fell short in the West Conference Finals, say they got the second round, that's still like, damn, bro, like we weren't even thinking of y'all in this light last year. No,
I would agree on that point only because OKC doesn't have a certified star on their squad right now, like Devin Booker and Aiden. Not even Aiden. Aiden was a potential star, like Aiden was on the Phoenix Suns. So I would agree with that. Even though they got SGA, they don't have a certified bucket to get it like Booker. So I can see your vision.
Here's the only reason I disagree with that. I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Kemba Walker are going to be on Oklahoma City throughout all of next season. They've been trying to move for quite some time now. And I also don't believe Kemba Walker is going to stay there. Remember, when this Kemba Walker trade went down last week, I said, I know it sounds crazy, but it wouldn't shock me if this ends up being a buyout situation Because one thing they did say is that Oklahoma City would potentially be discussing with Kemba Walker a plan for his future, meaning it might not be with that organization. It would not shock me if they buy his contract out and he ends up going to somewhat of a prove-it deal on the Lakers to get back at the Celtics. Because he's not happy with how that situation went down over there.
Do you think that would work, though? Like, honestly, do you think that Kemba, and not the Kemba from UConn, not the Kemba from Charlotte, not this Boston Kemba, but do you think Kemba could work being a, at best, third option?
I think him coming in more determined in a situation where guys are going to be more determined, I think it could work. Because I honestly think the Lakers would honestly ask him at times, just be here to make shots and be here to help run the offense. You're not going to ask him to play defense. That's never been his thing. So you're not going to put him in that situation, and they're going to have to address that situation too. But let me say this right now. I damn sure would trust Kemba Walker a lot more than trusting Dennis Schroeder. Let me just say that right now. Now,
Kemba's still young too, though.
Say that again?
Kemba's still young. He's only, 30, 31. He's not like super old. He just dealt with a lot of injuries. And the buyout thing that you brought up, X, that's a good point because Kemba's he signed a 4-year deal, $100 million plus deal with the Celtics. So now he has 2 years left on that deal with OKC. So he has his first year that he's on right now, and the year after that is a player option. So he could easily take a buyout quick and get out that contract. So technically, he only had one guaranteed year left on that contract, and that's his upcoming year. And like I said, that next year is an option year. So
now,
he can
also
easily
say this too, though. I could end up being wrong about that prediction because I didn't think Al Horford was going to play a dribble of basketball with Oklahoma City, and he spent the entire season over there. Albeit a good portion of it was him injured, but he still spent the entire season over there. Now, he was traded back to the Celtics in that Kemba Walker deal. I don't expect him to do much for that team at all because he is older now, and that age is really showing now. But when it comes down to Kemba Walker, I understand his age is there, but how old are his knees? That's a big question for me too. But we'll just have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out. But we're gonna jump on one more topic and then we're gonna wrap this show up. It's been a great conversation here with my brothers this evening. Shout out to Dev, man. He had to jump off, but we definitely appreciate him coming on the show tonight. And we're gonna jump into some NFL news here really quickly. Lamar Jackson, as we learned last night, is currently in the process of negotiating a long-term deal with the Baltimore Ravens. We've been waiting for some months now for this news to come down because, honestly, there were some of us who thought that as soon as Patrick Mahomes got his deal last year, Lamar's got to be next. That didn't turn out to really be the case. There were some rumblings out there that he and the Ravens were having some trouble negotiating some things, but it appears that they're on to the right track now. But the significance of all this is he does not have an agent. His mom is his business manager, and he's about to negotiate one of, if not the largest contracts in NFL history. And my question to y'all simply is, do you think that this will now start to become a trend across the league where guys may hire a family member, whether it's a parent, a sibling, or whoever, or somebody close to them as a business manager and try to keep most of that money to themselves as opposed to hiring an agent who you have to pay a certain percentage to?
Matt, let me hit this first. I just want to say there's actually a story about this. 30 for 30, the best that never was. Marcus Dupree. For those of y'all that don't know, Marcus Dupree, top running back in the country back in the day, everybody wanted his services. Well, when it was time for him to go to college, ended up going to Oklahoma, all that kind of stuff. Well, he ended up letting a family friend become a financial advisor to him that didn't prove to be quote unquote the best, because in the episode, Marcus even says He only saw one professional check, and that was it. He never saw any more of his money. He's a truck driver now in Mississippi. So just to that point of like, letting family or someone close to them, handle the money or all that kind of stuff. People have tried that before, and it has burned them. That's all I want to. I'll let Matt go ahead and dive deeper into it. But I just wanted to like touch on that where it's kind of like, if you don't know your history, it'll repeat itself.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see your point. So I don't think it's gonna start a new precedent because I feel like it's something that always been going on as far as let the family members represent you. And I remember at one point the NBA or the NCAA try to make that rule that your agent has to have a degree in order to represent you. And it was really, they called it the Rich Paul rule. Because they were like, they trying to do that to stop Rich Paul from getting so many players out of college and high school, honestly. And they were trying to stop him. So they trying to, your agent had to have a degree in order to represent you. He ended up getting killed because everybody realized that it was prejudice and racist and had no point to even be thought of. So family members representing you has always been a thing. The only thing about representing yourself, because we have some players that's doing it now, like Richard Sherman. He represented himself on his last deal with the 49ers. And I know a lot of people were saying that he kind of played himself because he took less money, yada, yada, yada. But so it has been something that always been going on. The only thing for me is that in the NFL, it's hard to represent yourself if you don't know the full cap room, contract structure, guarantee money, how you push money to the back. Like, because in the NFL, it's no straight line on how it's supposed to go. And I say that because every time, whoever the highest paid quarterback at the time is usually, they say, the cliche thing, it's the next man up. Whoever the current next man up is going to be the highest paid. So the bar for the quarterback money constantly is going up. So it's no set thing. Like, for example, in the NBA, it's a set thing. If you a superstar player, you become all NBA, won any major awards, all-star, thing like that, you can get the Supermax. And it's a set amount, you get that money. You technically wouldn't need an agent for that because you go get that regardless if you're a superstar player. Now, if you're one of those role players like that that's trying to find your way and that's trying to negotiate the best contract for yourself, then boom, you can get an agent for that. But in the NFL, there's no set thing as if you're a superstar quarterback, MVP, you get this amount of money guaranteed. It's no set thing right there. So he's kind of negotiating something that he's kind of got to make it up for himself. Like he can't if he go in that negotiating room and say, I want the same deal Patrick Mahomes got. That's not something that they can just be like, oh, okay, cool.
They laughing about the room.
Exactly. It's like it's weird. So that's why I said I'm skeptical of it only because how big Lamar is as a player. He's the next man up. So he's technically supposed to get the big deal. But it's like there's no structure on what the next big deal is. He kind of gotta if you don't have history in that, it's like that can, for me, that can be difficult to negotiate for yourself without an agent. Hopefully they're saying he's representing himself and his mom is his business partner. His mom may have history in that. We just don't know it. She may have history in negotiating contracts and stuff like that, and business person. We just don't know. She may have a consultant that we just not hearing about that's kind of guiding her throughout his process, and we just don't know about it. So, but if it is just Lamar himself negotiating his deal, not saying he's not smart enough or intelligent enough, sometimes it's just about muscle memory and knowing things that you don't know. Like they say it all the time in boxing. A lot of these older boxers, they've been boxing since, not even older boxers, but boxers that have been boxing since they was kids all the way to their adult. They have a lot of muscle memory things that they just do off instinct because they've been doing it for so long over a person that just picked it up 2-3 years ago and be like, oh, I got some hands. Let me get out there with the best boxer in the world and see if I can beat him up. And you get dropped because he got stuff that he's been practicing on since he was 2 years old that he just do off instinct and you don't even know about it. And the same thing kind of applies to here. It's certain stuff you just don't know because you don't have the history in it. So that's my only nervous thing about it. So I hope he get the best deal possible. I hope he get all his money, and I hope they don't play him on anything. And I hope he honestly know what he's doing, and his family and his mom know what they do.
Yeah. Shout out to Lawrence for bringing up that 30 for 30, because I had totally forgot about that, and it was very enjoyable to watch throughout. But the ending of it was that was pretty sad. So hopefully everything works out for Lamar Jackson, and he and his mom or whoever it is on his team, they know what they're doing and they get everything that they need to get out of the Ravens organization. And if it does set a precedent, hopefully it's setting a precedent to go in the right direction. But I want to thank my brothers for joining me tonight, man. As always, it's a pleasure having y'all on the show. To the rest of the family, we missed y'all tonight, but we know we'll have y'all on here the next time. And the next time we come to y'all, I believe we will be starting up the NBA Finals, or we'll be pretty close to it. So I won't say the next time that we'll be on here, but we'll be back with you soon. But shout out to Matt, shout out to Lawrence for coming on tonight, shout out to Dev. I know you had to jump off, bro. But we hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. Y'all need any predictions going forward, man? I say go to that man, the prophet, and go figure this stuff out. Man,
Eli,
this.
tell your boy Eli stop running, man. He know he should have hopped on today. Tell Eli stop running, man. Eli, I'm coming for you. I'll be on here next time for you.
We definitely hoping to have Eli and the rest of the family on next time. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, man. Once again, y'all do what we need to do to get this whole COVID situation wrapped up. Y'all put these masks on, social distance, do what y'all need to do, please. And if you are sick in any way whatsoever, keep your butt at home. Do not go to work. Do not go out in the public. Like if you have a job that requires you to have to be there, you got to explain that you are sick and that we're in a pandemic and we just don't need to be there right now. So let's do what we need to do so we can get up out of this thing, man. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to get up out of here. Shout out to everybody who jumped on the show tonight. For Lawrence Vaughn, Matt Craig, and Dev Ashby, I'm the X Factor, Xavier McKnight. Thank y'all for joining us. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.